Welcome to Community Group again this week. Hope your week is going well. Easter is right around the corner, and so I want to encourage you both personally and as a group to not let it sort of sneak up on you. Make sure you spend a little time just doing some devotions around that and maybe planning something together as a group so you can do that. But don't let Easter, it's so central to who we are, and so we want to make sure we celebrate it. All right, Ken is with us this week. We're going to talk about apologetics this week. But before we do, I have a question number one I want you to do. A couple of exercises, and then we're going to turn and we're going to talk about it. So take a moment right now, pause the video, and do question one. Talking to people about our faith isn't something that we always find that easy to do, and yet it's something that we're called to do, and it's something that we want to keep working on. And this week, we had Justin Brierley come. He had this amazing British accent, and he came and he talked to us about apologetics, and he gave us these three really good apologetic reasons, right? God's reason for human existence is the best explanation, and for human purpose and for human value. So we want to talk about that here. And Ken, I want to start by asking this question. You know, I have these apologetic sort of arguments. We have them. But in my experience, it's been tough both to start those conversations, but then also sometimes they feel like an argument. And my question is, do they always have to feel that way? And is there a good way to start an apologetic conversation?
Yeah, I'm going to go right back to the basics, John. I actually believe that the very first thing we've got to do is begin praying for opportunities to have those conversations. Otherwise, they're going to feel canned. They're going to feel forced.
Right.
But begin praying for them. And that's the easy thing. We can say, yeah, I'll pray for those opportunities. But I really think you need to tell God, if you give me an opportunity, I'm willing to take the courage to take the step of faith. Then you're going to actually be watching, kind of like if you buy a Volkswagen Bug, then all of a sudden everyone's driving a Volkswagen Bug and Beetle. If you pray that prayer and really mean it, and let Him initiate it, then you won't feel so weird or uncomfortable about it. That's really important, number one. Second thing, again, basics, but some of us haven't let the people know that we work with that we're Christians.
Yeah.
I know working at Village, most people kind of assume I'm a Christian, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a mechanic or things like that, or you're working in a bricklayer or construction, just letting people know. And one of the challenges, again, before we get into apologetics, we've got to decide, are we embarrassed of our faith? Are we ashamed of our faith? And here's the challenge there. Some of us actually might be a little bit ashamed or embarrassed because we're afraid we're going to be made look stupid.
Right.
But I wear a wedding ring, and I know this isn't about weddings, marriage and things like that, but if I walk to a store and I cover my ring finger, I'm letting people know, or I'm letting myself know I'm ashamed and embarrassed. And so we need to ask God to change that in our heart. So and let them know it's an important part of our life. So for example, what did you do this weekend? Well, I went to church. You go to church? Yeah, it's actually an important part of my life.
Yeah.
What did you do this weekend? I don't need to get into the debate there.
Right.
I need to just let people know it's important. And let them talk about something else. Okay, so again, now we get to question three, which is really your question, or point three, which is really your question. How do you actually have those apologetic arguments or discussions? Listen. Listen for what people say. So we just had the shootings, and you're talking about that, and we're talking about gun control and all that kind of stuff. In the shootings in the United States, for example, you're watching the news. Wow, yeah, the world's tough. What do you think the reason why our world's getting worse or more violent? And then listen. You might not get an opportunity right then if they say, "Why do you think?" See,
Right.
That's what you're listening for. Why do you think? Well, I think totally we can do the gun control arguments and things like that. But I'm a Christian, so I also believe that it's part of our nature. We tend, and then I can say I actually tend to choose wrong without God, and that's where it becomes really practical for me. And that's all I've got to say.
Right.
I don't think we come in with the whole argument all the time. And another question, just recently, this is an actual conversation. My wife was having a conversation with someone, actually a relative. And just the person happened to say, I don't think God would send people to hell. Okay, great. And the question could be, what do you think God should do with people that don't want to have a relationship with Him? Again, the point there is simply, if you're praying, listen and see if there's a non-weird way you can simply share your faith, but first ask them what they believe. Right? So that would be my strong encouragement. A funeral is another really good time. Someone just talking about a funeral, just ask the question, where do you think people go after they die? And let them share their idea. If they don't ask you where you think, then don't share it. But again, you're just looking for those opportunities. And then be ready to share the hope that's within you. And that's key. So we actually have the testimony or our story, or why does God mean something to me, right? So have that in your back pocket. Why does God even make a difference in my life? So that would be my encouragement. Make it non-weird.
This is the key, right? How do we do that?
Right.
And so what we want to do now is give you an opportunity to talk about these particular apologetic arguments that Justin gave us, and then to try to phrase them in a way that's not weird, and to think about how you're going to naturally bring them into a conversation. So take some time, do that in your group right now. When we get talking about apologetics, the whole question of doubt comes up. And obviously there's people in the world that we're talking to that have doubts about the Christian belief. But the fact of the matter is that sometimes we as Christians have our own doubts. And it's something that we don't talk about very much because we're not supposed to have doubts, and what will people think if we have our doubts? And yet, Ken, when you and I were talking about this before this, one of the things you mentioned is that there actually may be some value to Christians having periods of doubt in their life. Right. Can you talk about that? Where would that be valuable?
Well, first of all, it's not a value to actually have Christian doubts. It's the value to actually acknowledge that we have them.
Okay.
I heard someone that I respect once, a godly Christian speaker, and he was preaching. This was in my early years of faith, and he said, every once in a while he needs a good case of the doubts to bring him back to what he really believes. And that's the value in it. We all have doubts, especially during very difficult times. You're discouraged. You've been praying for a long time. Nothing's happening. You're going through a tough time at work or financially. And the question will come in our minds, do I actually believe God cares? And then you're in a position of doubt, and we have to understand doubt. Doubt is being caught between two opposing belief systems. And so what doubt can do for you and can do for me, in fact, I recently, actually just within the last 3 weeks, had a time, and I actually said, do I actually believe this? Because I've given my whole life to serving Christ. Do I actually believe this?
Yeah.
And then I'm in the doubt. And so, yes, I believe it, and here's the reasons why I might not believe it. So then I actually walk through, okay, doubt is, if I don't believe God actually cares and exists, what is the alternative? Well, that would mean that God, we just happen to be here by chance. Do I actually believe that or not? No, I don't believe that we're here by chance. There must be a God. If God created all this, do I believe that God just doesn't care and he's distant, or would he probably be active in my life? He probably is active in my life. When has God come through in my life in the past? I literally counsel myself this. Speak to your soul. Don't, why is my soul so disturbed within me? And gone through, yes, he actually came through. These are verifiable times. Do I believe? Yes, I believe. And that's where I hear, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. I'm caught in doubt and I won't do anything. And so now, yes, I've got my unbeliefs. Yes, I've got my reasons why I might not believe God cares. He hasn't answered this prayer. But do I believe? Yes, and I'm going to choose to walk one of these two ways. If you just stay in doubt, you're caught in the middle. Yeah. So it's helpful to rework through what I really believe. Easter is a phenomenal time to actually think about that, because we're talking about some of the key doctrines and beliefs of the Christian faith.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, it's an interesting conversation. We want you to spend some time. Talk about it now in your group. Easter is right around the corner, as we've already been talking about. And of course, when it comes to Easter, we focus heavily on the cross, as we rightfully should. As Justin said, it is the love of God that we see in the cross. But he also mentioned that the resurrection is where we get the hope from. And sometimes it seems that we focus so heavily on the cross, we miss the resurrection. And so my question for you, Ken, is why is the resurrection so important for us as believers?
Right. And I think the us word is really important, so make it personal. Why is the resurrection important to me? Is it actually important to me? John, for me, I just got to say it means everything. It means everything. I once thought through the resurrection, I thought, because of this, everything can always be different. It is actually, the fact that Jesus rose from the dead is what gives me courage and incentive to keep praying when things haven't gone the way I wanted, or God hasn't answered as quickly. Everything can always be different. It is the reason, sometimes, frankly, why I've stayed in my marriage. Not that we're going to divorce, but there are times in our marriage where we haven't felt a lot of love, but Jesus rose from the dead. Everything can always be different.
Yeah.
I can actually pray. And one of the reasons why it's important to me in prayer is I often tell people, pray on the side of Easter Sunday, not just Good Friday. What I mean by that is sometimes we're praying and it's like we're begging God to do this and do this. Jesus died, but he also rose from the dead. And there's real power in that. Also, in death, in times of death, and I know that's the big thing, but we also are all going to face death and people we love, and that gives us incentive to keep going. We're actually going to see those people again, and that really means a lot if you have people that have gone on to be with the Lord. And then the other reason that it's really important to me is sometimes it helps me remember this life is not the main event. And I know that all theologically, but sometimes I can begin living as if this life is the main event. But how we develop our maturity, for example, the struggles we go through and the spiritual strength we've developed, we'll bring that all into eternity. How faithful we've been here on earth, we will bring that into eternity, and some of our rewards in heaven, Jesus rose from the dead and will take us there, are going to be based on how faithful we've been. And sometimes that gives me the incentive when life just sucks or life is hard, and it just changes your perspective.
Okay, good. Take some time, read the passage here, this one out of 1 Corinthians, it's a powerful one, and then talk about how does the resurrection impact your day-to-day life. The conversation this week again has been around this whole area of reaching out to our neighbors and our friends with the good news of the message of Jesus. And it sort of seems like there's a bit of a theme going here, but that often means because God is working in our hearts. He wants us to really get it. So I want to encourage you again this week, spend some time praying and saying, okay, God, without guilt, what is it that you want me to do? Who do I need to invite to Alpha? Who do I need to have a conversation with? Where do I need that courage to do what you call me to do? So spend some time together again praying around these things and trust God for them all. And then we'll see you again next week.